All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to just jump right back into learning C++. So last time we made the simplest program that you can possibly make, and today we're going to do the famous Hello World program, which is just a few lines more, but they're kind of complicated, but I want to explain them all in enough detail. I don't just want to gloss over them, so we're going to go into detail about how these lines work, and we'll just get into it. Before we do that, though, I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page here. We want to go to debug and properties, and we want to go to linker and system. So we want to make sure that the subsystem is set to console. And the reason for that is that we want the console window to appear when we run the program. The console window is going to be, it could be a black screen or a blue screen or purple, but the idea is that it's an output window so that you can output text from your program to that window, and that's how a lot of programs are run. So, and actually you can run programs from a console window as well, and from a terminal window, whatever you want to call it. But we're using Visual Studio as our IDE, our integrated development environment. Basically for new programmers, it's a lot simpler just to hit this play button than it is to type things on a command prompt, but eventually you'll want to start using command prompts more for different purposes depending on what you're doing. So when I run this, you'll see the command prompt pop up here, or it's a console. Again, the words are interchangeable, but the idea is the same. It's a window that text comes out of. Although in this case, you can't really have all the functionality that a command prompt will do for you. So so we can just press any key to close the window. But the idea that I want to put in your mind for right now, we want to, our objective here, it's always important to think about the objective before you start coding. So our objective, our goal, is to get this to say hello world up here at the top. All of this text right here is just a bunch of default output text that Visual Studio generates. If we ran this program from, let's say, PowerShell or command prompt, it would not show all this. So we want to get hello world to show up on that window. So to do that, we're going to need to type this following line right here. So just put a little line right there, and we'll start typing on line 5. We'll do std : cout less than quote hello world, and really that could be any text you want. Less than again std : end l semicolon. Okay, and right now you're going to see some red lines. It's not going to compile. And in fact, if we try to build this, and by the way, whenever you click this green button, it always builds itself. So you can build and then run, or you can just run. But if you just run, then it's going to build anyway. So we get some errors here. Cout is not a member of std. That's because we don't know what std really is here. We don't know what cout really is here. So the idea is that the program doesn't know what these things are. But this line is going to work when we fill that program in on what it needs to know. And to do that, we're just going to go to, we're going to have to do this outside of the main function. So the main function lets us do the normal things that we would want to do. But if we want to define certain words or variables, we want to define things up here and then actually do things down there inside the function. So up here, we're going to do pound include less than, and then that, Visual Studio automatically generates that greater than. Sometimes you'll see things just pop up, and you can also see that we're getting recommendations here. So Visual Studio is trying to guess at what I might need. So I'll start typing IO stream, and it already knows that I want to pick that, so I can just press enter and it'll fill that in. But we're going to want to type include IO stream. This pound sign right here is called a preprocessor directive. And that sounds like a big word, but all it really means is this code on this line is going to be executed before we actually process anything, I guess. It happens before things are compiled. So yeah, so this sort of tells everything what it needs to know. And in fact, you can see the red line has gone away. And if I build now, it succeeded. So what did this really do? This preprocessor directive, whoops. By the way, I did that by accident, but you can actually close these things out with that little plus and minus. It's kind of neat. So the include, what this line actually does, I meant to click that. This includes the library, IOStream in particular. So we could rename this. We could rename this to whatever. We could call it. I think there's a math library or something like that. But or what else is there? You know, if we have like a custom library we want to include, we can do like custom.h. You'll be doing this later on, but the idea is that for this one we need IOStream. And what is IOStream? The I stands for input, the O stands for output, and then this is a stream. So what is a stream? A stream is like I'm going to explain this in really like vague terms here, but a stream is like a flow of data basically. Because I really don't know too much about the details myself, but a stream's like a flow of data, and this is the input and the output. So you kind of get the idea that this is handling the flowing of input and output just from the name alone. And now when we go back down here, we can see that these lines are no longer red. In fact, we don't have any lines at all, and it compiles normally. That's because the cout word, I guess it's a I'm not actually sure if it's a function or something, but it's included in the library. The cout function is included in IOStream. And by the way, if you guys have any suggestions or comments, please let me know in the comments below. You know, I don't know everything about this. I know a lot of things about coding, but I'm not perfect at it. So if there are any things that if there's anything I get wrong, just let me know. But basically in cout is inside of IOStream, and that's why including it will let us know that it exists. The std part, so what does this mean? This means that there is something called a namespace, and inside this namespace exist functions and variables and all that. And one of the functions or variables in the namespace std is cout. So another one is also indel. Okay. So we're loading in this library, which is a collection of functions and variables. And we are calling this cout from the IOStream library. These less than signs right here are a special kind of operator. And I'll get into more what an operator is later. But basically, you can imagine it as like a, you know, this is kind of like the flow. So we're flowing left to right. Anything that is pointing to the left is going to be output. If I were to do like a right arrow, then that would be input. So we'll see that later on. But really, that's all that matters right now. And again, an operator, I'll just explain again. Like an operator is just like a plus sign or a minus sign, something that handles, like I guess for lack of a better term, something that handles variables. So you'll see more about operators later on. And that's all you really need to know to run it. So let's just, oh, no, there's one more thing, this indel here. So this actually causes an end line. That's why it's called indel, which really you won't even really notice, but I'll run the game or the program and you'll see it. So up here you see hello world, and then there's an empty line. So that empty line is the end line. If I didn't put end line, there would not be that empty line right there. There's also a special thing that it does, which it, I guess, flushes the buffer or something. I'm not really too concerned about that, and you really shouldn't be either, I don't think. But it basically, if you have a lot of lines that you want to have here, you may not necessarily want to call indel until you are really done with it. So, but anyway, that's our hello world program. It's the simplest program that people usually teach right off the bat, but really the simplest one is not even doing anything at all. So I thought I'd show that one first. And now we've got hello world. So a couple things, well, really just one thing I want to end on here. It is kind of a pain to have to type std cout all the time. So there is a shortcut for this. You can just go up here and include, or you can type using namespace std. And what that's going to do is we can just get rid of std : and now it just knows right off the bat, without us telling it anything else, that cout and indel are part of std right there. So it knows, okay, grab everything that's inside of the std namespace, and now we can just call it like anything else. So that's a shortcut, although you might not necessarily want to always use this. An example is when you might have two different cout functions that maybe behave differently, or something like that. Two functions with the same name. You might want to actually specify what namespace it's in. But typically, this whole block of code is what you would have for the hello world program. And I just wanted to explain that line by line and sort of show you how to break it down step by step. And so here we go. We have our hello world program, and you've successfully, if you typed all this in, you've successfully output some text to the screen. You ran a program and did something with it. So congratulations. It's very simple and it doesn't do a whole lot, but it is something. So that is something to be proud of. Later on, we'll be doing some more complicated things, but until then, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. And again, leave any suggestions, comments in the comments box below. So thank you very much. See ya in the next video.